Hi everyone. I'm going to take some time to make a video on the upper limb. And so here I have the bones of the upper limb. I have the scapula, I have the humerus, I have the clavicle, the ulna, and the radius. And so I'm going to start by taking away everything other than the scapula. So we're going to look at the scapula. And we notice one side is very flat, but it has this kind of hook right here. And the other side has this ridge. This ridge is the ridge that you feel when you touch the upper part of your back and shoulder. So that's the bony ridge that you feel coming out. And so if you started towards the center of your spine, you'd be working out in this direction. Let me just kind of show you here. So this edge of the scapula is along the vertebrae, and this spine goes towards your shoulder, ending in this projection that's called the acromion process. Okay? When we look at this edge, we see this depression, and this depression is called the glenoid fossa, or the glenoid cavity. And then on the front part, the anterior scapula, we see this hook, and the hook is called the coracoid process. This is where many of the arm muscles attach. So let's look at the acromion a little bit and its relationship to another bone, the clavicle. Okay, so the clavicle, this like flat end goes towards the acromion, and the other end attaches to the manubrium of the sternum. And so how it fits is kind of like this. The acromion and the clavicle make a joint called the acromioclavicular joint. Okay, so we have that orientation. And then I'm going to take the humerus, this end of the humerus, and I'm going to show you how that works. The humerus fits into the glenoid cavity. Okay, so the humerus is a big bone, and it's a little bit hard for me to get the whole thing into view. I guess I can do that right here. But we have this rounded head at one end of the diaphysis, and at the other end, well, this is the epiphysis, of course, here's the diaphysis, and then the other end we have the distal epiphysis, and it's a very kind of specialized thing. See this rounded part right here? That's called the capitulum, and this is where the radius articulates with the humerus. And then we have this notch right here, and that notch is called the trochlea. Okay, and then we have the lateral and medial epicondyles, which are these kind of rounded points on the side. So let's see how this, so we've seen how the humerus fits into that glenoid fossa. And this is an example of a ball and socket joint, right? So the head of the humerus looks like a ball. It rotates pretty freely in the shoulder joint. Now I'm going to take the ulna, and we're just going to look at this end of the ulna. Okay, we have what's called the trochlear notch, which is going to hook in, hook in to the trochlea. Okay, over here we have a process called the olecranon process, and the olecranon process is actually what you hit when you hit your funny bone. Okay, so here here's how that joint would look, and so you'd be hitting your funny bone. Ow! And the reason why it hurts is because there's a nerve that travels right along that olecranon process, and you've just crushed the nerve. This little hook over here is called the coronoid process. So we have the coracoid process of the scapula, and we have the coronoid process of the ulna. Okay, and so I'm going to pop those back together, and you can see that there's a little space right here for the radius. And I mentioned that the radius attaches right here, so we can see that how that articulates. So the ulna and the humerus form a hinge joint. It only moves in one orientation. And the radius and the humerus form a pivot joint. It rotates around an axis. Okay. At the other end, I'm just going to kind of hold these two together. At the other end, I don't have these quite oriented right. You see the area where the hand fits. Okay, so here is where the hand articulates with the radius and the ulna. Okay, before I go too far, I want you to notice that the radius is lateral and the ulna is the medial bone. Okay, and so if you're looking at a humerus and you're having a hard time understanding what direction, are you looking at the anterior humerus, the posterior humerus? Well, you see this ball, right, the head, and you know that that's going to point towards the body. And then as you come down, if you see the capitulum on the lateral side, you know that you've got the right orientation. This is the anterior humerus because we see the capitulum, we see the trochlea, and the head is pointing towards the body. Okay. So now that we're going to the hands, we have the carpals, the metacarpals, and the phalanges. Okay, so carpals are these little bones. Metacarpals are the first long bones of the hand, and phalanges. Okay, so I hope that you find this helpful in studying the upper limb.